Hello, folks. Okay, so I'm going to try and not repeat anything that you've just heard and keep it moving. So, okay. So, really, what I'm going to talk to you about today is if we can try to navigate a path moving forward between farmers and those that make the legislation and peatland code, etc. Okay, so very briefly, I'm going to give you a background to my setup and when we became a designated site. So I sort of had a slightly different mindset to a lot of other farmers. At the age of 21, I decided that I would buy in to the family farm or buy out other parties. It was a failing farm business. It needed a massive injection of cash or a change of ideas. There were serious improvements that needed to be made to the genetics, and also there was no housing on the farm, so we really needed to bring it forward into the 21st century. At the age of 23, my father passed away and I took over the whole operations. Now, as some of you might know, a father and son working together on a farm, there's a very difference of ideas. So I suppose at that point there's no man, but at the same time we had a very significant borrowing from the loan that I'd taken out to buy in initially. Then a year later we got designated as an ASSI and an AOMB. So that came with serious repercussions. On one hand, you want to move a business forward, you want to make further investments, make it grow, but then you essentially have one hand tied behind your back because you're restricted not only on livestock that you can put on, but it has a serious impact on planning as well. And therefore, if you want to go into more intensive lines on other areas surrounding the designations. So I sort of seen it as an economic blight, if you will, on the farm business, the designations. And at that point we had to make some serious choices as to how we were going to move forward. So also then we had the financial crash happened at the same time, and a very nice solicitor had me a very nice bill after probate as well. So when relationships break down, so for me, there was no real dialogue when we got designated. It was a case of, this is what happened, just suck it up, it's designated now, you need to reduce your stocking levels, and that's it, we're gone. Then lack of trust, you sort of lose, what would you say, any trust in the department, and it becomes like a marriage where neither party can divorce each other, essentially. But also, the way I looked at it was, I don't know what other area within the food industry where the government could come along and say, okay, you've a nice factory line here, we're going to take away 50% of your production line and you need to stay in business and grow your business. So from frustration, I needed to look at it towards opportunity. So what could we do to make the business, you have to work with what you have. How do we make the business thrive? You need to change the management of that business. So instead of looking at it, let's go intensive, let's look at the genetics. How can we make these hardier and make them stay on the land, forget about housing completely, and really make it a low-cost system and try to maximize the return from a very low-cost input. And then, I suppose now, 20 years on, we have conservation options. There have been environmental schemes, as you've touched on. I feel like yourself, in the last 5 to 10 years, those schemes probably have had a negative impact on habitat, but there's a very, what would you say, lack of common understanding as to what we're actually looking for in these habitats, which is part of the problem. And it's about building partnerships. I'm now working with the Wildlife Trust and Rivers Agency on different peatland restoration. So, if we think about, everybody in this room can agree on one thing. We need peatland restoration. So I'm not going to beat that drum. We're going to take it as a given. We're all on the same page here. But every peatland is different. And what I've seen up until now is that government rollout of different schemes, etc., has been very much just rolled out. It hasn't been prescriptive to each site. And local knowledge has been quite often overlooked, and we would like to see, certainly in the farming community, more engagement with the local knowledge base that's there, built up over generations. And for the best results is when we have science, research backed up over years, and bring forth that local practical knowledge as to how best to implement that and get the best rewards from the peatland. Long-term thinking, quite often what I find is that we think about a 5-year plan, but really on hill ground or peatlands, you need a 20-year plan. And in industry now, in any industry, the big problem is job retention. People move around a lot in the sector itself. You know, gone are the days where somebody takes a job for 30 or 40 years. Apart from farmers, literally they will and don't take pay. So if we can somehow bring in perhaps the peatland education into agricultural colleges and have more farmers involved in the process from the beginning, and also maybe annual feedback back to the governing body as to how the restoration work is going and see the results from that. So eating cardboard. As you rightly said, what I've found is the previous schemes were very prescriptive on grazing, either to remove stock off ground at certain times or destock completely. The problem you have is the habitat becomes very overgrown and the pastures become unpalatable for the stock, and you have a serious problem when it comes to fire loading and wildfires. So the sheep will go to, or the cattle will go to, where the grass is sweetest, and it's how you then bring that ground or that pasture or habitat that has become too overgrown, get it productive again and have good wildlife and biodiversity. So can the farmers be the foot soldiers of the future, really, when it comes to peatland restoration? We'd love to see policy coming along from the ground up and working with the farmers. And again, the generational knowledge that's there, and the farmers possibly could be long-term custodians of the peatland change that you want to bring about, because there's funds at the moment. Government policy can change, and it's how we navigate this over the next 50 years. Because if you want meaningful change on these peatlands, it's not a 5 or 20 year plan, it is a 50-year plan, and that's where you need that local foot soldier or labour unit. So, can we have meaningful dialogue between farmers, scientists, policymakers, etc.? And hopefully we can, and a goal that we can make the countryside more productive and see those upland communities, because it is a community, see that survive and maybe prosper. That is it. So, thank you.